From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. My guest today is one of the most accomplished and versatile athletes in the skydiving world. Amy Chmelecki has spent nearly 3 decades pushing the boundaries of human flight, amassing over 20,000 skydives and 2,000 hours of wind tunnel time. A true trailblazer, Amy holds an astonishing 25 skydiving world records, 3 world titles, and 9 national titles across disciplines like freefly, freestyle, vertical formation skydiving, and dynamic four-way. Amy began her skydiving journey in 1995 at the Ranch in New York and has since become one of the sport's most recognizable figures. As a proud member of the Red Bull Air Force since 2013, Amy has performed jaw-dropping stunts like flying a wingsuit formation over Manhattan and landing on a barge in the Hudson River. She's also taken her skills to Hollywood, serving as a skydiving stunt double in films like The Mummy and San Andreas, and performing in high-profile commercials for brands like Verizon and Kia. Off the screen, Amy is a co-owner of Broken Records, LLC, and the Highlight Pro Skydiving Team, where she continues to inspire others by organizing groundbreaking events and world record attempts. In 2022, her incredible contributions to the sport were recognized when she was inducted into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame. With a career defined by innovation, passion, and precision, Amy's story is nothing short of extraordinary. I'm honored to welcome my friend, Amy Chmelecki, to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Hello, Amy.
Hello, James. Thank you for that introduction.
When I was reading that, you were looking down as if you were almost embarrassed by it.
It's always, as I listen to your podcast, which I love, I absolutely love your podcast. I'm thrilled to be here. I always think, I know you do that on purpose, right? You have the guests kind of listen to it, and it just, I'm sure it's a bit awkward for everyone. You hear that list. But yeah, I've been real lucky. It's been an epic career.
Epic. Let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Tell me about your background. What were you like as a kid?
So as a kid, I was really I was sick a lot. I had really bad lung problems, and nobody really understood what it was from. So I struggled a lot with my health. I got pneumonia or some sort of bronchitis at least 4 times a year. So I missed a lot of school. I struggled a lot in school. I have dyslexia. I checked all the boxes. And so I did struggle a lot, but when I started playing sports, I really, really excelled and realized that, I'm good at something, so that was a beautiful discovery for me as a child. And I grew up in a family. I have 3 brothers and sisters, so there's 4 of us total. My parents stayed married until I was 4. They got divorced at 60, so they stayed married most of my life. And my household was a mixture of bad and good, I think, like most people. As a young person, I was very adventurous, but I also just loved being at home doing nothing, which is still the way I am. I'm either like full speed ahead, or I'm just like, I'm on the couch. I don't do anything. So I'm still kind of the same way.
What was the occupation of your parents? What did they do for a living?
My mom was a nurse, and she was a OBGYN nurse and then a skin doctor nurse, and a nurse for a skin doctor. And my father was a bit of an entrepreneur. He had a few different businesses growing up, but his most successful and long-term business was in restaurant supply sales. and he owned a restaurant supply sales business. First, he was a truck driver when, like, in my very young, and then he started a restaurant supply business, sales business, which then he worked for a company, and then he owned his own company again, and now he works for a company. So they're both still alive, and my father's still working. My mom works a little bit, but for the most part, she's retired.
Nice. And you're from, I want to make sure I get it right, Mamaroneck.
Yeah, Mamaroneck, New York.
You don't have the thick New York accent.
When I'm angry, it comes out.
Yeah. I'm from the Caribbean, and when I get angry, my father was making this comment the other day, it comes out as well. I don't know what it is about anger and sort of getting into your roots a little bit, but...
Yeah, totally.
Are you quick to anger, Amy, or are you pretty level? What's your jam?
Yeah, it depends on which personality is taken over at that time. Don't worry, I haven't named them, but there are a few there. So I think I'm good. But really, I think sometimes I am not quick to anger, but I think if I'm tired or whatever chemistry is going on, I am. But I've worked really hard on dealing with my anger in an appropriate way. And I've worked really hard on that. And I've had some breakthroughs more recently, which, it's ongoing.
I've never hung out with you on a personal level, but I've never even seen an inkling of that.
Yeah, my anger looks more like Amy's really quiet today and not saying anything. My brain shuts down and I'm just like,
We have much to cover, but there's a word that I hear today more than ever, which is neurodivergence. I have family members who are dealing with dyslexia, but it doesn't feel today like it is. I think a lot of people who've had it in the past, when you and I grew up, it was like a shameful thing. Did you ever feel that way? Like, oh, I'm not learning or catching on as quickly, or how much of a burden was that?
Terrible. It was terrible, James. When I was a kid, I remember getting pulled out of my normal classes and having to go to special classes. And it was so painful as a child. I felt so dumb and so worthless. And to be honest, I didn't really recover from that until recently. As an adult, I started thinking, geez, maybe I am smart, maybe I am I've had a lot of successes. I don't know. And it's ongoing. It's something I constantly have to kind of work on. But yeah, it was really, really painful. I couldn't read. I was reading all the kids would be in the appropriate section for our age at the library. And the teacher would take me and bring me to the Dr. Seuss, the kid. And it was just so embarrassing. It was terrible. Until I started playing sports, then I was like, watch out, everybody.
What sports did you excel at?
I played soccer and field hockey throughout middle school and high school. And I also played rugby in college, which was so fun. That was the scariest stuff I've ever done.
So at some point, you make your first jump while you're in college. What was it that inspired you to go and make this first skydive?
I had so many dreams when I was a kid about flying. It was just something that I knew I had to do. It just was part of me before I even did it the first time. It pulled me in so much. I remember two women talking about skydiving, and I don't know who these women were. I never met them, but someone else was talking about these two women, and I thought, oh yeah, that'll give me what I'm looking for. That's it. That's what I got to go do. I had this vision of me just flipping and flipping and flipping. And I thought, God, I got to try that. I was 14 when that happened. And I tried to go to the ranch in New York, and they said, no, you got to be 18. And I kept trying every year and trying to get my mom to give me permission, because at then the laws were you could go with your parents' signature. My mom was like, yeah, no chance in hell. So when I was 18, I went, and it was given. I mean, I knew I was going to do it.
It's so funny that you just said about the flipping, right? Because as you said it, my brain immediately goes to an early bit of footage of you when you were on the sugar gliders flipping out the back. I think of a tailgate. I almost wonder if that was you living the vision back then.
Yes, it was so fun. It really that thought of not having the floor right there and not having to like jump up to get a flip in, just like fall and flip was, I had this dream when I was a kid too that I would be tracking. Then I didn't know what track dives, but it was like it was like an old school track dive where the leader was in the front and everyone was kind of in a V behind them, like what we used to do in the early 2000s. And I would be tracking in the head of this V like birds with my friends, and we would be tracking like past the school playground. And then this big dream of mine is to actually do a track dive over that school playground in my hometown. I gotta make that happen one day.
Man, I feel like in 2 phone calls you could make that happen.
Yeah, I gotta make that happen during, like, they have a fair once a summer. That would be so much fun. Yeah.
Oh, that was nice. It was fun to watch as you went there. I saw you drift into your younger self.
That was fun. Good times.
You do eventually make your first jump, right? And like everybody else, just totally hooked. This is it. Revelation time.
Yeah, I remember walking on the drop zone. So my teammate on the Red Bull Air Force, Jeff Provenzano, he was going to do his level 1. And I went with him and a group of our friends. We were all friends. We all went to neighboring high schools together. And they were going to do their level 1, and I went to do my tandem. And I remember walking on the drop zone. This was pre 9/11 in New York. New York was a bit rougher. People weren't. They got a lot nicer after 9/11. It was just like everyone was just kind of grumpy and pushy. And I remember walking on the drop zone and thinking, what? These people are so nice. Like, everybody's so cool here. And I fell in love with the community. It reinforced that it was something I wanted to do. And I realized at that point that you could actually do it, which I didn't know at all. I just thought, I don't know what I thought. You just go once or you join the military, I guess. I never looked back after that moment.
Did you finish college?
Miraculously, I finished college. And Jeff kept trying to get us to stop. He was like, come on, we got to go now. All these teams like the Fly Boys and the Freefly Clowns, they were all crushing it and like creating this new discipline. And it was all the rage. And we would, watch the old videos. And Jeff was like, we got to go now because now's the time. And I was just like, I am not finishing college. Like, I'm definitely finishing college. I'm not quitting college to go be a skydiver. That's ridiculous. And I can't, it's like out of my character to actually want to do academics more than sports. But for some reason, it was just really, really important to me to finish that. It was just like a given. I got to finish college. But yeah, right after college, I moved out to Skydive, Arizona.
If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Burble. What'd your family think of you? Like, all right, see ya. I'm going to a place never even been there before, moving there. Going to live in a tent.
Yeah. By then they were a bit used to it because every summer I would go and explore. I started exploring when I was 17 at a high school, and I went back to New York for that first summer, and that's when I started skydiving. But I would just travel all the time, and it was clear that I didn't care about the risk of just driving around the country without a lot of money or cell phone or credit cards. It was different then. I had cash in my pocket and a piece of crap car, but I didn't have any fear at all. So they were used to that kind of that within me, and there was a little part of them, I believe, that admired me, at least now. But then it was always like, when are you gonna get a job, Amy? When are you going to have kids? You got to start planning for that. And I was like, I don't know how many times I need to tell you, but I am not doing that. I said no to them. So finally they stopped asking me that. But
so how many jumps did you have when you arrived at Eloy?
So I came out here the summer of 95. So going between my sophomore year and my junior year. So I got my skydiving license the summer before. And then Jeff and I drove cross country that summer. We didn't know it was going to be 120 degrees in Arizona. We just heard there was this big drop zone there. I mean, so free spirit. James, we had $100 each. Like, we didn't have, and we had this crappy car that would stall when you put the air conditioning on. It was just like, we didn't care. We had a tent. We lived in a tent in Arizona in the summer. And then like eventually Scott Smith let us move into his trailer, which was just like paradise. We had air conditioning, a trailer. I still owe him $100. Scott, I'm going to pay you. I'm sorry. I still owe that to you. And so we came to Skydive Arizona and we fell in love. Jeff was packing tandems and I was working at the truck stop down the road, the graveyard shift. I was like waiting tables and we just did what we could. We had so much fun and we fell in love. But we went back. We fell in love with each other, ironically, but we fell in love with Skydive Arizona is what I meant to say. You know, we were just like young, love kid, high school sweethearts. The drop zone, we totally like really just loved this place and knew we would come out here after college.
It's interesting, Amy. I recently spoke with Gustavo Cabana, and his thing was, I didn't care about money. Like, money was never my motivation. I just chased what made me happy, what lit him up. And I've noticed that this is something that there's a red thread that runs through everyone who are high achievers in skydiving. It was never worrying about how am I going to have enough money to do anything. And yet it's almost as if, it just came to them, having them follow their hearts. And it seems like that's absolutely the case for you.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I still try and go passion first. I mean, what a privilege and lucky lifestyle to be able to say that, right? I mean, not many people in this world can prioritize passion in their career. So I recognize that privilege and I am very, very grateful for it. I do think, though, if I could hammer something into my younger self, I would just say, just put away a little money because there's this thing called compounding interest and it's really amazing and your older self is going to thank you. You don't have to do much. I wish I understood that then. And it's like a mission of mine to try and teach my nieces and nephews that. I was able to avoid debt. I was taught that. My mom just really reinforced that all the time to avoid credit card debt. I'm grateful for that. But I do wish I had saved a little bit because, that money would be so much more now. I didn't start saving until I was maybe 35, 38, something like that. It'd be nice to start earlier.
What created the penny to drop for you? Because I saw the post on social maybe last week that said, hey, I'm looking for some programs. I want to teach my nieces and nephews about being responsible with their money, et cetera. And I thought, wow, this is so adulting. I like this. And by the way, the segue I'm going with is I'm very in tune with what's called FIRE, financial independence, retire early. Now, maybe like yourself, I ran a drop zone. I wasn't putting away any money. I was just trying to eat. I didn't think anything. So now in my adulting years, if you will, that seems to be a theme here, adulting. I'm taking 30% of my paycheck and I'm just compounding, trying to get this thing to compound as quickly as I can because I'm making up for lost time. So when did this awareness for financial responsibility come across you?
I think mostly it was when I watched my grandma in the last, I was one of her main caretakers in the last 8 to 10 years of her life. She had Parkinson's and she needed a lot of care. So I watched her run out of money and need money for her aids and to keep her in her home. It was so much money. At the end, we were paying $10,000 a month for aids because she had to have 24-hour care and she ran out of money. So, we figured it out. My mom was able to figure it out, because it wasn't just we want to keep her like safe. We wanted her comfortable. We wanted her in her home. We wanted her surrounded by the aides that she got along with, and we were doing the best we can, but there's only so much time that we all had, we couldn't dedicate all our time to stay. We had to work. And that's when I realized my mind shifted from, I'm probably going to die, which I think anyone hearing this, they're like, yup, I thought that my whole youth. Like, you just, to like, oh no, maybe I'm going to live. And that's not like I don't want to live, but you just realize, wow, like if I am to the point where I can't work, luckily I've always enjoyed my work, so I'm happy to keep working. But if I get to a point where I can't work, and I need help, I just really realized I needed to plan for that, and it was serious and important.
So interesting. Mm-hmm. So jumping back now, you arrive at Eloy. What's the scene? Who's there? What's the vibe? What's the energy? Who are you meeting first? Who are you like, oh my God, I've seen him in Parachutist?
So I remember meeting Tim Strauss. He was one of our closest friends. He was so fun and crazy and was so kind to us. And that summer, Omar was here. Dale Stewart was training, and my mind was absolutely blown watching her. I couldn't imagine, like, she was so hardcore and serious about her training, and it just looked like the wind didn't affect her. Like, I thought her skydiving was perfect, and I still do. When I watch her videos, she was, for those who don't know her, she was a freestylist in the mid to late 90s, and from the time she did it, she won everything. She completely dominated, and she's definitely worth a Google on YouTube. If you check her out, Dale Stewart, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, I remember she was here. And then some of the manifestors, like Barbara, she's such a legend here. She was here. I just saw her a few minutes ago. She's still here. So many fun people. The Fly Warriors here. The Freefly Clowns were here. All of them. John DeVore was here. It was really amazing time. So many awesome people. Fred Frugan was here. He was packing tandems. I was working at the bar. So like Jeff and Fred were both packing. Fred wasn't packing tandems, but he was packing. And there were so many great people here. And we all kind of grew up together in the sport. So fun.
It's interesting, the timing, because that group are like all Hall of Famers today. And if they're not in now, they will be. Yeah. When I hear John DeVore talk about, walking into Eloy with his experience and who, what was going on there, it's like the serendipity of arriving at this very special time in skydiving that was so exciting. I suppose it's still, obviously it's still exciting, but it was fresh and new, this whole free fly thing,
Totally. It was so great. I do think now now it's about what's happening in the tunnel, and it's shifted. Then if you wanted to become a good skydiver, you would, and you didn't have a lot of money, you had to figure out a way to make it happen, right? So you would pack parachutes or live on a drop zone. I was bartending. I'm pointing behind me because the bent prop is, I worked at the bent prop at Skydive Arizona for 10 years. So, you did what you can. Now all of that excitement is in the tunnel. And sometimes, I get kind of nostalgic and a little bit of FOMO that I couldn't be, that I wasn't 30 years younger and in that scene right now as a young person in the tunnel. But yeah, it was an incredible time for all of us. And I think back and I think, like, was it like the most amazing, like, did we have it better than anyone? But I think people always think about that when they think about like their 20s. It's just like such an exciting time for a person.
It was pre-cell phone, wasn't it? It was when we all like legitimately hung out by the bonfire and laughed and all the things. It is a different scene. I wouldn't want to be sounding like the old guy that says, back when I started, it was
I remember meeting Orly King, and like anyone that had the privilege of meeting him, you just fall in love with him when you met him. It was just like, oh my God, he was so cool. Just so cool. And we were sitting by the fire, and I had done a wheel out of the, oh God, I'm brain locking on what exactly they're called. There's probably different names, but like out of the sky van where everybody holds like the leg strap, you bend over and you hold the leg strap of the people in front of you and you roll out like a wheel. And it's like, totally was probably, we had good equipment. It was good enough for that, but you know, that could be really sketchy if you don't have good equipment. And my mind was blown. It was like the coolest thing. And I was telling Orly, like, I did this today. It was crazy. You know, and he was like, young kids, just, you know, enjoy it while it lasts. But no, it was that special time.
In the early 2000s is when you came on my radar for the first time. And that was VFS was happening. You were on Arsenal. And as I have shared with Sarah Curtis, I was mesmerized by that team. Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I couldn't get over her camera flying skills, but also how physical. I just remember you and your teammates turning points. It was aggressive. It was graceful in terms of how fluid it was, but it was just turning fast, and it was so physical. And I remember, Amy, just completely admiring you and what you all were doing, because it was just, whoa, you know, I'd never seen really anything like that before. And then you guys kept winning, you know, at the Nationals over and over and over again. And as you listen to me say that, you're smiling and you're nodding ahead. Where does your head go as you recall that time?
I think about the tunnel. So SkyVenture Arizona was just built, and Skydive, I had done freestyle before, but Skydive Arizona was interested in having a team do a VFS team, and they saw VFS as more of the future, and they anticipated that it would take over. The owner of Skydive Arizona, Larry Hill, is extremely passionate about competition. He's always been very much like promoting it and supporting it. One of my heroes for sure. But he basically asked me, I wanted to do freestyle because I had been doing freestyle, and I found it was logistically easy because you could just train on your own, you know. And he wanted a VFS team, so he basically asked me, and I put together the team. First, I got Curtis, and then Curtis and I found the rest of the teammates. He said, let's have Sarah be the video person. And at that point, she didn't have a lot of experience. Like, she wasn't ready. And I was just like, I instantly like chuckled at him. And I was like, come on, get real. And then he basically explained to me what his thought process was. And I was like, yeah, let's get Sarah, like, that'll work. And he was like, she's going to work harder than anyone else. Like, I'll totally coach her. She's completely hungry. She's committed. She's reliable. And it was the best decision we could have made, because Sarah, when you get Sarah in a room to negotiate or like discuss things, like, watch out whoever's on the other side. And it's not like negative at all. She's just really good at seeing the win-wins and explaining them to people. So it was so cool to do that and like have that experience and learn from Sarah. She changed so many of our lives with the way that she is, just who she is. She's incredible. And she was so good at VFS. She was too good. You could see like little busts because everything was so clear, where the other teams would just be like these shadows and they wouldn't get busted because it was annoying. And even the judges were like, you're actually too good, but they really appreciated her. And we didn't care. We actually discussed it once. We said, should she back up and potentially it would hide some of the busts? And we were all like, screw that. Like, we don't want to present this shadowy, weird glob of people to the judges. We want to give them really good, high-quality video, and we took a lot of pride in that and knew that we were sacrificing potentially wins But the tunnel was what was really, we were so lucky because of that. It was the first tunnel that was on a skydiving facility that was big enough to do and strong enough to do VFS. So it gave us an edge, and no one had seen anything like that before. So it really gave us a big edge, and it was a while before people could catch up. Basically, other tunnels had to open so people could have that opportunity to train that we had.
So during this time, Amy, I felt like you were at a point where you can't really go any higher. In terms of traditional thoughts of working your way up the ladder in skydiving as a professional skydiver, like, hey, we need to have Amy Chmelecki at our boogie, Carolina Fests, all the major things. So now you're on the boogie circuit and you're winning gold medals. And that's normally, for most people, that's as good as it can be. Or you try a new discipline, or you run the drop zone. You become a drop zone manager, something. And then at some point, you get the call from Red Bull. That is such rare oxygen, right? Because there's so few players on that team. Can you tell me the genesis of when you got that call to join Red Bull?
Yes, with pleasure. But I'm just so excited about Mike Brewer. He just got branded, and I was the last person to be branded before him. I'm just so happy that he is on our team. I adore him. Do you remember me telling you that? It was like a few years ago. I was like, they're looking at Mike. I love him so much. We're so lucky. But anyway, when I got called, I was traveling home from a tunnel competition in Singapore. It was a really, really rad tunnel competition, and that tunnel and that city was incredible. And we beat our nemesis team. So I was already like really, really excited. And it was the first competition where Sarah was on the inside now, because she was camera for a long time, and then she moved on the inside. So it was the first competition where Sarah was on the inside, and we won. We actually got second place, but we beat the team that we really wanted to. So in our minds, and I will forever consider that a full win. It was awesome. And I was already just stoked. And John called me. Whenever John calls, he's one of those people where there's two people when I get calls from them. I'm like, yeah, John and Luke. When they call, I'm thinking, oh boy, what do they got? Like, they're going to give me some cool offer. I'm going to get some cool job. So John calls, and I answer, and he said, he was so sweet. He said, I want to know if you'd be interested in being the first woman on the Red Bull Air Force. And I was just like, yeah, like I was in the middle of the airport, so I couldn't really start screaming. I think I was overwhelmed. It just, this whole possibility flashes before your eyes, and I think like, wow, like this is crazy. And then I start thinking about some of the demos I would know I'd have to do, and I start getting nervous. And and he also said to me, he said, look, I just want to make it clear that you know that one of the main reasons why we've decided on you is because I know you'll tell me no. I know you'll tell me no if you can't do something, or if you don't think you should do something. He said, and that means so much more to us and the program than anything else. And I'm so glad he said that, because it could be really intimidating to rock up on a project or a demo and tell him you're not going to do it. And he basically opened up that door for me, so I knew that I was safe if I told him no.
Of all the people they could have asked Amy, why do you think they asked you?
I think that they knew me pretty well. I had met John the first time at Skydive Arizona, and then I got to know him at Skydive Lake Tahoe. I was doing Manifest at Skydive Lake Tahoe. I really got to know him then, and I called him one day, and I said, John, what's your problem? You guys need a woman on the team. Like, how do you not have a woman on a team? It's ridiculous. And he said, we're wanting to bring a woman on, and you're on a short list of names. And, how about we do a few jobs? I'll hire you to do a few jobs. So he started hiring me part-time. And I think it mostly had to do with, so much of it has to do with personality and how you kind of have to be confident, but you can't have a big ego. You have to be able to take like heavy shit talking, which as a New Yorker, that's what we do. Got that box checked. It's a bunch of dudes, all of them married. All of their wives are good friends of mine, and they trust me and love me so much that there's such wonderful women. Like, you think the Red Bull Air Force guys are cool? Oh my God, their wives are just the most amazing, outstanding women. And they would say to me, like, not only do we trust you, but we actually would rather you be there than not, because we know that our husbands are going to be like more mellow and on best behavior when you're there. So they used to say stuff like that to me. And I hate saying that that's part of it, but how could it not be, right? Everyone has to feel safe with each other and trust each other. And that was there.
If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to invite you to be a member of a budding community with me on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests and gain access to some show swag. It's pretty sweet. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. How long did it take you to feel like part of the team? I mean, we've got Sean McCormick, Luke Akins, Jeffro Provenzano, John DeVore, Miles Dasher, Andy Farrington, Mike Swanson, legends. Not that you weren't legend. I mean, you had plenty of pedigree. But, like, how do you work through, or did you have to work through, imposter syndrome? Like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, definitely. And I still struggle with that. It's like an ongoing ththing, and life changes all of what we do, and kind of what the team looks like, and who is kind of in charge. John's clearly still in charge, but our athlete managers change, and things what Red Bull is wanting from their athletes changes. So yeah, it's something that I am constantly working on, like get those insecurities or those little like shitty voices in my head telling me that I'm not good enough, or just, keep your mouth shut, So I have to figure out what do I listen to and what I don't. But I felt like they were my brothers right away. We had like I've known Swanson for so long. I was training Melissa. Nelson and I were training side by side with Alchemy. So the Sugar Gliders was our team, and the Alchemy was training at Skydive Chicago. So we were training alongside them for years. So I really knew John and Mike from then pretty well, and we had good connections. But I remember a moment where I thought, all right, I definitely deserve to be wearing this hat. It was at the Miami Flute Tog. And we had to, at the Flute Tog, Flute Tog is that fun competition that Red Bull does where there's a barge and you push these flying objects off the barge. And it's a small barge. It's only 70 feet long by like 30 feet. And I had to land on that barge, and it was tricky the way the winds were. I had to kind of go like, when I look at the video now, it wasn't that crazy. But in my mind, I was like going through trees and under parallel. I just landed right there, and I thought, yeah, like, all right, that was good. Okay, I deserve it. I can do this job.
And I just want to be clear, Amy, you totally deserve it. When I ask why you, I think, yes, it's in life, it's good to know people, but obviously you have to have skills. You can't damage the brand that you're repping one of the largest brands in the world. But I think it also comes down to attitude, right? Amy, you have a great attitude. For anyone that's listening, in terms of your laughter, right, there's joy. And I have to believe that was a big part of it.
Yeah, I definitely am my fear response is to fawn. And I've been exploring that more and more and like trying to like unpack what, how that is positive or negative. But I think myself and most of the people on my team, that's also their fear response. We just kind of laugh in the face of danger. But we go to this place when things are tense where we're just kind of all making jokes and keeping it light and just fawning. And yeah, so I think that's a big part of it. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. I mentioned earlier that sometimes I don't know why I'm just I'll be struggling emotionally or something. And I think when I'm in an environment where I'm around a bunch of people and I meet some people that might be meeting me for the first time or looking forward to meeting me, and I'm in a very introverted, insecure mood for whatever reasons, I know that people are like, wow, I thought she was cool, like she sucks. And I've had that like feedback before, and that it crushes me when I think about that. It makes me so sad, and it makes me think about what it is like to have a little bit of fame, and how do you really deal with it when you're not having a good day. It's kind of like an ongoing thing for me.
Certainly in our circles of limited opportunities in skydiving, that's rare air, right? But also, I would imagine there has to be a level of a burden, because if you're outdoors, you're wearing a Red Bull hat, and there is a preconceived notion of what a Red Bull athlete in terms of what that energy has to look like. I mean, like you're high on caffeine and taurine and, like slugging Red Bulls all the time, right? But you're also human. Is there sort of almost I don't want to ask you to say, well, is there a burden being a Red Bull athlete? I'm not looking for that. But when you leave to walk out into the general public, away from your private space, your home, that there is a persona that has to be in line with the brand. And how do you juggle that of being your true self? Whoa, let's get the couch out, Amy. It's getting deep. And being the persona of a Red Bull athlete.
Wow, gosh, there's so much there. Okay, so if I look at my teammates, I look at somebody like Miles, who is one of the most energetic, fun-loving people. Like science needs to study that man's brain now and when he dies. Like, what is he made of? None of us understand, right? He is insane. The Miles Dasher that you see on videos is who Miles is. He doesn't have an on-camera, off-camera personality. He's just full love, full energy, 24/7. And then you have someone like John DeVore. You won't even see him. You won't even see him in a room. He's just like, that's like the beauty of him. He just is moving the pieces around, making magic happen like a ninja, right? You just don't. He's quiet and he's not flashy. So they're so different, but yet they're both Red Bull athletes. So what I really love about the brand is that they want you to be yourself, and they encourage you to be yourself. And they check in with us once a year about passion. Like, what are your current passions? So we'll have a conversation, and it will help us lay out potential projects or the direction of the next year or 2 years. So I really like that about the company. So you are encouraged to be yourself. But when people say just be yourself, I don't know what that means. I don't understand what that means. And I'm like, do other people understand what that means? I especially when I was younger, people say, just be yourself. And I was like, oh, like, I don't, what does that mean? I have so many things, like outfits that I'm trying on in my head, or like directions. It's a strange concept to me. I still don't know what it means, really.
I don't think anyone wants me to be myself, because hey, myself gets hangry if I haven't eaten in too long. That's not very pleasant to be around.
Yeah, I grew up in there was like lots of kind of a narcissistic behaviors where you knew that if you were a certain way, you would be loved. So there was versus be yourself and I don't think I was presented with this ability to just explore and feel safe being myself. I really, as a young person, had to become a people pleaser to feel safe and feel good. And my childhood wasn't like crazy traumatic. I think a lot of people have those experiences, but it was very confusing for me to actually take care of myself first. I think in a lot of ways it helped me because I am able to kind of adapt and do what I need to in situations to get things done. But it also could be toxic because you're constantly avoiding difficult conversations or sacrificing yourself because you don't even know what that is, for other people. Like other people come first constantly. And it wasn't until in my 40s where I started to actually consider what I needed first, especially in like romantic relationships or friendships.
There's several things that you've said in this interview. You mentioned, with my anger, I'm digging into that. You are reflecting on being a people pleaser. It's as if, am I right in saying you're going through a period of digging deeper into who you are? You seem to have very high self-awareness. And this is coming off of a recent conversation or interview I had with Jason Chmelecki, certainly our friend Mel Curtis, where it's so enlightening to sort of dig in to ourselves. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I just listened to your episode with J-Mo. It was so wonderful. He was here too back in the late 90s. I remember there was a couple of seasons where I just watch him swoop. He was so amazing, such a natural talent. But yeah, I've admired his journey as well, watching him learn and grow. I've always been growth-minded and really love to kind of dig in and explore why I do the things I do or feel the way I feel, act the way I act in response to my emotions or, stimuli. And for a long time, I was really happy and successful on the surface, but really struggling on the inside. And my life was still great, especially on paper, but also I had a happy life. I was very grateful, but I was struggling. I was in extremely toxic relationships. It took me a long time, a lot of therapy, a lot of books, a lot of learning how to surround myself with safe people and people that I could, feel comfortable talking with, like Mel Curtis. How lucky to have her as one of my best friends. She's so amazing. So other people that were, because when you are a people pleaser or when you grow up having to be a certain way to be safe, like you had to fit a mold, you attract people that are gonna take advantage of that. And no digs on the people that it wasn't like they were right and I was wrong. We were just perfect poisons for each other, So I would kind of just get myself in these situations where I was getting my worth by making these people happy and getting their approval. And it was never, it was just a dead end. It was just shitty situation after shitty situation. And, I was traveling around the world doing all these amazing things, but just inside, it's just so struggling. I'm really, really struggling. And Yeah, I had one of my therapists out in Costa Grande, close to Skydive, Arizona. She changed my life. I saw her for like maybe 8 years. She was my therapist, so wonderful. And now I'm not in therapy specifically, but I'll do random things. Like Red Bull has a sports psychologist, and I recently did a long guided meditation with her where we did parts therapy, and it was breakthrough for me. It was basically helping me. I had a conversation with that part of me that had to be the people pleaser to survive as a child, and it was like 2 hours, this guided meditation, and it made me realize that part of me was crucial for survival and really important, and I could honor that part of me and respect it and love it and be okay with it there, but just like know that it is there and we love each other, but I don't need it anymore. And it doesn't serve me anymore, but it's okay, it can stay there. Because it's not like it's going to go away. That part of you is just there. And it was so it helped me so much in the leadership roles that I'm in, and helped me kind of understand and trust myself more. So yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
It's interesting. And I don't know if it's because I'm also maturing and growing in similar ways. But, when we're young, and certainly in the age of social media, wow, look at all the achievement. Wow, wow, wow. And you would think, if I could replicate that person's level of success, I will be so happy. And it's not that I'm happy to hear that someone is going to therapy, but I'm happy that we're all talking about it, to know that there's something more beyond just the gold medal in terms of fulfillment.
Yeah, totally.
It's refreshing to me, Amy. It my heroes, the people that I look up to in the sport, yourself and Chmelecki, who I was honestly intimidated by, and go, wow, look how vulnerable all these people are being. That to me is just so much more admirable than any achievement, because to put yourself out there helps so many more people, I think, than just seeing victory after victory after victory after victory. It's the struggle that's so beautiful.
Yeah, that behind the scenes stuff, like what's not in the Instagram post, and we're all human, right? We all have it. And I think sometimes the people that like think that they don't, you're just like, ooh. Like everybody does, of course. And James, I feel the same way about you. You're someone I've respected and admired in the sport so much. The way that you managed your drop zone and managed the boogies, I learned so much. And I also have heard you talk about your vulnerabilities, and I have the same feelings. Like like you can be a person that is excelling and doing wonderful and great things, but still struggling and needing to work on things. So we're all human. One of the things most recently that was like a game changer for me too, I always used to think growth was something you needed to like get on the other side of. And it was like, you're just gonna, like, I'm not getting there yet, but I will. I just got to keep working, and then I'm going to be over it. And it was a struggle because I felt like I was failing all the time because I hadn't yet reached that side. And then I realized that it's something you just have to constantly work on. There's no other side. There's just life, and it keeps coming at you, and you have to keep working on things as things change and experiences happen. And it was such like a relief for me, because then you're just like, oh, like, okay, it kind of sucks because I'm always going to have to be working on things, and there's always going to be challenges, but it was also like, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm not failing just because I don't have this thought in my mind that now I'm going to be emotionally healthy and happy and stoked all the time.
It's so much more relatable, unless you're Miles Dasher.
I know. What is that guy? He's so funny and so good.
He is extraordinary. Last question about Red Bull. Give me a behind the scenes. Like, what are some of the perks that the general public does? Red Bull portrays amazingness, but what are the perks behind the scenes of being a Red Bull athlete that most people don't know about?
I love, I guess it's things that people can see though. I love the friendship and the teammate, and when we're together and we're doing training camps and everyone's working together and doing great things. I love that. I love being part of that team and having those opportunities. I love that they are passion first, and I've learned a lot from that. It's so important. They don't want you to think about, okay, I got to make a video that goes viral on Instagram. Okay, you don't start there. You start with, what are you stoked about? What are you passionate about? And then once that box is checked, then you can plan from there. And if you have an idea, like I'm working on this project, and it's an inspiration from a rock video that from the 90s, this woman, Wendy O. Williams, that's what inspired me, this rock video. So from there, I'm building it out. Who knows, it might end up being most appropriate for YouTube or Instagram. You don't really kind of figure that out until the end. And exactly how we're going to show it, you don't really care about that until the end. First, it's like, okay, what's kind of exciting? What does it mean to you? So then let's build the elements around that. That's the best part to me about Red Bull.
What prompted the question was when I observed Jeffro rehabbing. I didn't know that there was like this Red Bull Sports Institute where Red Bull athletes get to go and get all the nice things with, I suppose, massage therapy and anything else with PT. And I was like, wow, that is a sweet perk.
Yeah, it's cool. That's out in Santa Monica, so we can go there and reserve. It's pretty much always open, and you can go there and just stay in the athlete house and stay for a week. That's where I went through that therapy, that parts therapy that I was just talking about. And yeah, it was great because I was working. I recently did a world record, an upright world record, and it's mixed. So it was men and women, and I was nervous about that because I get I have trouble in leadership roles in front of men, and I will, if I get perceived that someone thinks I'm not good enough, it will, or perceived misogyny, it might not even be there, but if I'm like perceiving it, I'll shut down and I can't think and my brain gets all confused. So I was with the physical trainers, but I also had that sports psychologist there, and it was profound. It completely changed my game. That's definitely a perk.
So cool, Amy.
I've been lucky.
I'm going to be putting in the show notes videos that correspond with some of the stories. My mom is a huge consumer of this podcast, and she's not ever made a skydive before, but boy, does she know everyone in the community. And I want my mom to know, I want you to tell a story to my mom. I want you to tell the story to my mom of flying in a wingsuit down the Hudson River with the New York skyline just right off your shoulder. Just walk us through that. The emotions of the fear of such a high profile jump. I'll say no more. Tell my mom about that experience.
Jeff Provenzano, my teammate, he called me and basically said, hey, I've been working on something and it's finally got approved. So he basically laid out the project idea and what we were going to do. And the idea was to take 4 of us. 3 of us are from New York, and then John and our camera flyer for the project was Andy Farrington. So we're going to fly a wingsuit formation down the Hudson River, past the Freedom Tower, and then break off, and we would land in a barge in the Hudson River. Because in the 5 boroughs, so anywhere in New York City, it is written in the laws that you can't skydive. Most places it's not written, but you would just get like trespassing or something, some kind of law, they would figure it out. But there's specifically a law against skydiving in New York City. So we had to land on a barge in the Hudson River. Now, some people can get away with it, especially if you're have an in with the cops or the mayor, you can get approval. But the way that we did it was all Jeff. It was Jeff's networking along with Red Bull New York. We got to land on a barge in the Hudson. So there was a tugboat pulling this barge. It was 75 feet by, I think, 35, something like that. So the barge was small, but it honestly, compared to a lot of our demos, it's relatively easy because there was no obstacles on the entry point. So if you were going a bit long or short, you could... There was plenty of space to make adjustments. It wasn't like you had to get your foot as close as possible to this wire or building on your turn. You know, it was actually, it's not easy, but that part wasn't so crazy, although it looks really crazy, right? It looks crazy. But yeah, we went to the ranch in New York and we did practice jumps there, just getting our formation together. And I was the least experienced at wingsuiting, so John had to figure out where my comfortable mid-range flight was. So we did a bunch of jumps and then John was setting the pace for it, and he really set it to a speed that I would be able to match. And it was a one and done situation. If we didn't do it, we would not have the opportunity. So if anything went wrong, it was over. Because you have to stop all the plane traffic. Like, it's New York City, right? You had to stop. You got Newark, you got JFK, you got LaGuardia. Like, they're all right there. And they had to stop for us. So yeah, we get out. My slot was right next to John, looking at New Jersey. But all I saw was John. It was just like, John, John, John. And he looks at me and he goes, look at the buildings. And I was like, look at the buildings. Like, screw you. Like, I'm just breathing. You know, all I thought was, look at him. And then I didn't really get to see anything, like, until we were getting interviewed by CNN. And Jeff and I were in the studio. And they had the videos playing all around us in the studio, and we were just like, oh my God, like we hadn't seen it yet. And it was really just mind blowing. I mean, these buildings are so huge and beautiful and incredible. But for me, all it was flying this slot next to John. You know, that's all that I was focusing on. And it wasn't until later that you got to really enjoy how beautiful it was and the visuals.
What are you like on the plane before exiting? Where is your head at? What's your heart rate at?
I tend to stay pretty relaxed. The moment I'm in execution mode, very rarely do I feel uncomfortable. I tend to get into a good zone most of the time. And I don't know what about my chemistry. I've been very lucky. I feel like it's been something that's come natural to me. But I have had to train myself to stay in a good headspace where I could react the way that is going to serve me the best throughout the planning process. So, you know, even in the plane, I visualize a few times. I try not to overdo it. And I tend to I'll bring my phone. I sometimes, especially when I'm doing records, I feel like bad that people are just like, she's playing a video game on her phone. But if I am not doing something like that ADHD brain, I just have to, I can't just sit there. It's super hard for me. I have to be kind of thinking about something during really tense moments. So I tend to keep my brain occupied. And if if I get hit with adrenaline where my brain is working really well, I'll just like do work on the phone, or I'll write creatively, make notes, plan things, and I'll take advantage of it if I can. I visualize, I take that really serious, and I incorporate all the detail, like my breath and my visuals, and I try and, when I'm visualizing in dirt diving, to get the most out of it as possible.
Was that New York jump the most high-profile jump you think you've ever done, or is there something that eclipses that in your mind?
I think that was definitely the jump that got the most publicity. Yeah, people were seeing us in Japan and China, and like it was on the news all throughout the world. So I would say that is the most high profile. Yeah.
What about the most technical? Has there been one where you're like, ooh, that stretched every part of my skill?
When I plan and execute world records, those are definitely take the most amount of my brain power, and I'll plan them for 2 years, and I can't just do it a little. Like, I am thinking about it constantly and working on it constantly. I love planning and executing world records, but my brain is just like constantly trying to figure out how to make it a better experience for the group and for the record, and keep it something that people want to do. So those are by far the things that take the most amount of my brain power and time.
My perception of you, Amy, is you're a great leader, because in my observation, I would feel more confident on a record with you because of your confidence when that adrenaline is going. Like, she knows that this is possible. It's very impressive. A last thought on that is the night pyro, Max Pyro. That was extraordinary. I've never seen anything like that. I can't imagine how gratifying that must have been.
So fun, so beautiful, right? Just the visuals of that, it's mind-blowing. And it is really technical. You got to plan out how to make sure that pyro doesn't go off in the plane. You have 40 people, you have 23 people in the plane with 6 sticks of pyro strapped to them, and everything has to be done in a way where, you're keeping everyone safe. But what's so cool about that project was it was an extremely high level of talent on it. There were people like J. Russ and Steph were participants, and Chad Ross, and the people that you're like trying to figure out how to get to your event because they're going to make it better for everyone. So you're kind of either paying them or searching for sponsors, just this high level. But everyone wanted to do it. So, because it's fun and cool and challenging. With that level of talent, there was so little ego because no one had anything to prove. And all of the people there knew that they were in a student mindset and appreciated detail and a process, and they wanted to feel safe and secure. So it was really easy to get everyone to do things the exact same way and the way we wanted it to execute. So everyone knew when we were gonna turn our activation units on, and how the communication was going to go in the dark and when you can't see anything, and exactly, everyone knew all of the details and was very happy to oblige in it. That's great. I love working with super high level people because of that. They're not afraid of being wrong. They're not afraid of screwing up or not knowing things, and that is so important, so that made it easy.
For those unfamiliar with Max Pyro, definitely click the link in the show notes because it'll blow your mind. Amy, in this incredible trajectory of your career, just when you think you hit like a high note, then there's another one. You just had the world record, but now you're going to be a USPA national director.
Woo!
Talk about Going for it.
I know.
What was your motivation to want to become a national director for USPA?
James, this is the scariest thing I've done in Sky. Like, I am so terrified. So I feel like as I age, I'm exploring these other ways where I can be of service to the sport, to the community, and also, to myself. Like, where am I going? What do I want to do? For me, what I've always been good at is using my body for like a sport and competition, and it's always been the execution of the sport. Yes, the planning and the all this behind the scenes stuff is exciting to me. I actually really love it, but it's always about the sport. So just to have this responsibility of being a board member is scary, but I know that with the experience that I have, that I am an important piece of this 22-person puzzle that can offer a perspective. So I'm really excited about that, and Sean Hill wasn't elected, but I really actually wish that he was. I really respect him and his background and his opinion, and I will constantly be consulting him because I don't know anything about being a drop zone owner or managing aircraft, or he's got like this level of expertise that I have no idea about, but I see my role as like I will be a voice. Like, his opinion is really going to matter to me as I kind of navigate through these decisions. I guess part of it is a self-serving, and I'm going to get mad when I say that, but it's a win-win to me because I'm so stoked and fired up about this new type of leadership. And I have so much experience in this sport and knowledge to offer. So it really is a win-win. And I'm really grateful to all of the members to trust me with this responsibility. It's a big deal. It's like a lot. We're making decisions that it's super, super important. I heard some chatter like, what is this, a joke? Like the haters on Facebook, what is it? Are they just making a mockery out of it? And I'm like, why would they say that? Like, I guess they don't know me and they have an image of me as just this athlete or Instagram presence, but they don't really know how the serious side of me or things like that, which is like, it's really there. I spend a lot of time thinking about things and doing research and making sure I'm prepared. So I'm stoked. I'm stoked for that level of leadership and to, be part of something like this.
This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. I'm not going to say this because I'm currying favor with you or because we're speaking or because we're friends. Mm-hmm. You're going to be great, Amy. I think for those naysayers out there, and what I'm about to say will not satisfy them because they're naysayers, but to pull off the world records that you do, I think that for you anyway, the flying is the easy bet. It's the level of coordination, the level of administration, the amount of getting the right people in the room to be able to accomplish big things. That skill is so transferable to say, look, we need to work together. We need to listen in order for us to be better and to push things forward. I know, Amy, this is such an exciting time for USPA. I will say, last comment there, it seems poetic that you and Melissa Nelson are serving together, when we think back 30 odd years ago when you guys are just, fresh-faced folks at Eloy on the sugar gliders and going out to conquer the world. And you have, and then now, boom, this next thing, it's amazing.
I'm so excited to share that with her. And she's been so helpful. I send her messages all the time. Just, what about this? What about this? Okay. And so far, I had a meeting yesterday where I got kind of my email and got like some of the rules laid out. And I just went, some questions I thought, God, I hope this isn't stupid, but I just went for it, and I felt good. There is a bunch of skydivers, right? Jen Sharp, she's so dope. She's incredible. And Albert, how cool is Albert? People asked me before, like, what do you think the USPA does well? And I was like, well, they hired Albert. Like, how great is that guy, right? I mean, he's incredible. I am definitely nervous for this level of responsibility, but excited and ready for it.
The very fact that you're nervous and using the word responsibility speaks volumes. Amy, you have 6 minutes.
Got my Pilates class.
To get the Pilates class. Thank you so much for indulging me with your time. Oh, there's so many more questions and things I wanted to get into, but that was refreshingly awesome. Amy, just on a personal note, you and I have known each other for a decent amount of time, I guess 2006, 7-ish. And you've always been just so great. I mean, despite your accomplishments, you've never been unapproachable. You've never allowed your success to cloud who you are and how you treat people. And that's why I respect and admire you so much. As I've said to others, it's great that you have all those medals. But if you're a total jerk and into your own, oxygen, it's not. But you've never been that way, and thank you for giving me you always give me time, in the various projects we've done through the years, and I'm just so grateful for that. Thank you,
James. Thank you very much. People don't remember how you were when you won or when you were successful, like. How you are when you fail is really what's important. Like that classic, like, don't judge someone when things are going well. How do they act when things aren't going well? And that's always been so important for me. And I'm not always proud with the way that I've acted during high stress or when I've gotten triggered, but it is something I always work on. So I really appreciate you saying that. And it's also something I try and teach, especially during the record experiences. Like, all right, so that wasn't perfect. Like, it will never be. Like, nobody cares. No one's going to remember if you were on the record jump or not. People don't remember. Like, what people remember is how you act and how you made them feel, especially during difficult times. So, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Love that, Amy. That's such a good place to be. I feel life is so short, right? Life is so short, goes by so quick, and I want to be a positive force with the little time that I have, as opposed to being negative. So thank you for that.
Hey, James, what about the crossroads question? Should we get it in? Is that?
Let's
are
do
you
it.
changing?
Let's do it.
Last question?
I'm staring at it, and I was like, I'm going to bypass the crossroads question because we got to go to Pilates. All right, let's do it.
No, they know. No, my pleasure. Okay.
Amy.
Crossroads.
Amy, tell me. I'm going to cue it up for you.
Okay. I'm ready.
Tell me a crossroads moment in your life where, had you not met a certain person or taken a certain action that may have seemed mundane, but had you not done that, chances are you and I are not speaking today.
Okay, philosophically, James, don't you think about that question and think every single moment, right? Every moment, like all the time, you're just constantly like, what is fate? Like, how is it unraveling? Do I go right? Do I go left? I don't know. Yeah, I that whenever you ask people that question, I always just think like, God, that is a really difficult one to answer. But there have been moments that like were profound, where I really felt like the direction of my life has changed, and I'm on the path. And it was here at Skydive Arizona. I was going through a difficult time. It was early on. I was having trouble at the drop zone, and I was having conflicts with people on the drop zone and kind of getting bullied basically. And I was going to leave Skydive Arizona, and I lined it up where I was going to go home and work with my father. Cause that was always like, he would hold like, are you going to come and work? You can always work for me. We can build this business together. You could have kids, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, all right, like that's there. I feel unsafe here. And I feel, that, and in my mind, I didn't have a right to be here as like the bullies. And I thought, okay, I'm going to quit. So I went into the bent prop and I went to talk to my manager. I sat down in her office. At that time, this woman, Jill, was the manager. And I said, okay, I'm having these experiences. I'm going to quit. I want to give you my 2 weeks notice. I'm going to move back to New York. I was like 22. And she said, shut the door. And she said, Amy, you are not leaving. She said, if you run now, you're going to run the rest of your life. She said, we're going to confront this situation. We're going to tell the drop zone. We're going to like make you safe. Like people want you here. You want to be here. And this is what she basically yanked me out of this path. Like I had it all lined up. I was just there to tell her, and basically pointed me on the path I'm on today. And we went to the drop zone management and we told them, and they fully had my back. And the whole thing just was like, there was support, and I felt it was really, really profound. And I'm so grateful for this woman, Jill. She passed away, and we quickly lost. She wasn't the manager anymore. I lost touch with her, but like, I don't know what my life would be like if she wasn't tough and strong and basically taught me to stand up for myself. It was cool.
What a great story.
I love that story. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You just never know. And that reminds me too, of the guy that JMO used to work for and told him to go skydive and, on the path. I mean, it's just amazing how people and little moments can completely change somebody's life. Amy, I'm so glad you asked me to ask you that question. You should host a podcast.
I think someone should do the podcast and interview you, because James, you are so interesting. It's always so fun working for you, with you. So thank you.
Amy, get out of here. You're awesome. You're awesome. I'm so grateful for you. And I can't wait for everyone to hear. Actually, I've just come back from vacation. I don't have any more episodes in the can. This episode, as everyone is hearing it on Monday, was recorded 4 days prior, today on Wednesday. It's coming in hot. It's coming in hot.
That's great. That's great. I love it. I've listened to all of them, James. I really, really enjoy your podcast. It's interesting, and you have this knack for like picking, like Tony. How cool is Tony? And I've always wanted to know more about him. So that was great. Yeah, and Leah. Yeah, it's good. Good job.
Tony Peralta, what a guy!
So great.
Love that guy. All right, hey, you got to get out of here.
Yeah, time to go to Pilates. Thanks, James.
Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for our next episode.